we'll now discuss the function of rate records. Within OTM's rate structure hierarchy, rate records capture specific costing information for lane-to-lane movement within Oracle Transportation Management. OTM depends on rate records to optimize, plan, and build shipments with accurate costing information. In this demonstration, we'll discuss working with rate records within Oracle Transportation Management. This allows us to create the charges for freight movement by a service provider for a specific lane. To begin, let's navigate over to our application. From our main navigation, we'll again drill down through Contract and Rate Management, then Contract Management, and then finally Rate Record. Here, we'll use the search to look for an existing record. So here we've brought back a few rate records. Notice with the listing of rate records, they're also linked to a rate offering. As discussed earlier, rate records are a child of a parent record, which is the rate offering. So in this case, we can see there are actually a couple of rate records which share a same common rate offering. For our example, we'll look at the rate record which ends in TN, which helps us to understand the lane that this rate covers. So here's the rate record open. Again, the rate record represents costing information from a service provider from a specific defined lane. So in this case, on our lane info, we have the main naming convention. So the rate record ID represents a unique ID. Typically, it represents some sort of a convention based off of something like either the carrier name and or the truck mode, the lane definition. So in this case, we have an abbreviation of possibly the carrier, TL, which might represent our transport mode of truckload, and then finally a suffix of TN to TN, which in this case represents our pickup and our drop-off, which would be in the Tennessee to Tennessee location. Again, as a reference, this shows us that the rate record is linked to a rate offering, which serves as the parent record. And also, similar to rate offerings, a rate record has its own effective dates, which can be used. So within this individual rate record, we could specify a specific date range. However, the rate offering which it's linked to will ultimately control the dates. So in other words, if we have a rate offering that has an end date, then that end date would also supersede and take over the expiration date set here, unless the expiration date happens to be before the expiration date set within the offering ID. But both can be used. Also, if we reference down below, one of the key setups for defining a rate record is the hierarchies, both for source pickup and for destination. Also notice that we can set these at different values. So for example, the pickup and or the drop-off can be very broad or very specific depending on what region or level you want to set that. In this case, they've used state province to state province. On the next tab, we'll see where the values are set for these. If we now advance to the Attributes tab, the key function here is to provide the values for the hierarchy that was set on the first tab. So in this case, we're using a lookup code that represents Tennessee to Tennessee. So as that translates, any order releases in the system that are being considered for movement would only consider this rate if the pickup and the drop-off are both somewhere in the state of Tennessee. Again, as noted before, stop-off charges can also be included in rate records. If they are defined in the rate record, then these would supersede the stop-off charges that are defined in the rate offering. Otherwise, if no stop-off charges are defined in the rate record, then only if they appear in the rate offering would they be applicable here. Additionally, if we look at the rate cost, this is where you define the base charge or the charging mechanisms for this particular rate record. A single rate record could contain multiple charging elements. In this case, we see an example where this one is based off of a calculated charge. So it's using $3.50 US dollar per every mile of travel. And this one also contains a minimum charge. To see that in a little bit more detail, if I click on the edit, this takes us into the definition. So within that rate, you could also have conditions that would let you define rules that would say before this charge is considered, then we need to determine if certain conditions have been met. This example does not contain any conditions. However, again, for the charge definition, here is where, based off of the metrics chosen, we've selected $3.50 US dollar per basis of shipment total traveled, which in this case equates to every 1 mile. Again, if we click on the basis list of values, you can see multiple metrics are available. So depending on how you want to calculate the charge, multiple options are available. In this example, we also have a minimum charge. So in this case, if the total travel distance does not calculate at least $350, then the system will apply that as a minimum charge. Otherwise, if it exceeds $350, it'll be the actual charges based off of the calculation. We'll return back to the main rate record. The accessorials tab again also allows you to link extra charges to this rate. So things again like your fuel surcharges, unloading, special functions again could be defined here. Special services, again, like accessorials, could be additional charges, but tend to be things that are typically mandatory for the rate. Things like fees or maybe certain licenses that are required. And as noted, the accessorials and special services can be applied at both rate offering or at the rate record level. And then we also have the remarks tab, which allows you to go in and specify what kind of a contextual remark do you need to link to this rate, which could be used for printing purposes, labels, reporting, or just general information. So if we go back to our main context, to summarize our structure, rate records capture costing data for shipments, which is based on user-defined lanes and can utilize multiple cost definition methods. Hope you found this informative, and we thank you for viewing.